Ladies and gentlemen, the very first of President Trump's blocked executive orders has just got done making its way through the U.S. Supreme Court, and let me tell you what, we just scored a massive win. Now, this specific case was about President Trump's ban on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, from federally funded public schools. And so, folks, we are going to have a lot to talk about today, but first, check out the report.
We're apparently just learning about this in the last few minutes from the court. What's going on?
So this is significant because, as you said, this is really the first time that President Trump has gotten a win from the high court since he came back to the White House and has undertaken this expansive effort to reshape the federal government. Now here, the Supreme Court is allowing him to block $65 million in Department of Education grants meant for states to help with teacher shortages. Now, these grants were allegedly targeted because they contain some DEI initiatives. Now, I want to caveat, while this is a win for the administration, it's sort of a lowercase w win because this is one of the lesser known challenges in this parade of cases that is heading to the Supreme Court related to things that Trump has done since he took office. There's still outstanding questions about whether the Supreme Court will uphold his effort to do away with birthright citizenship or use war powers to facilitate deportations. His lawyers have always told me, Casey, they are confident that even if these policies are blocked at the lower court, that once these ideas, these questions got before that conservative supermajority, that they would prevail. But it's unclear that will be true. I will note in this case that Chief Justice John Roberts sided with the three liberal justices dissenting in this decision.
Now, folks, of course, the left-wing propagandists over at CNN are going to try to downplay just how big of a ruling this is, but take it from me, this is massive. The reality is that this Supreme Court ruling sets the national precedent that President Trump's federal ban on DEI is now undeniably the law of the land. However, even though this is a huge win for President Trump and really the country as a whole, that CNN report was actually correct about just one thing. You see, this Supreme Court decision was a little bit close. It was 5-4, with Chief Justice John Roberts voting against President Trump's executive order. Now, for those of you that regularly watch the channel, you'll know that Chief Justice John Roberts has some suspicious connections, to say the least. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I suggest you watch the video that I'll go ahead and link down below in this video's description. But as a quick summary, it would appear as if Chief Justice John Roberts is a member of a very curious, secret, invite-only group of progressive judges. In fact, many of the progressive judges that have been blocking President Trump's executive orders on the federal level across the country are also members of this invite-only group. So what this means is that many of President Trump's upcoming Supreme Court cases, including whether or not he can end birthright citizenship or invoke the Alien Enemies Act to deport illegal immigrants, or whether or not he can federally ban gender-affirming care, really comes down to whether or not Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett rules in his favor. Because, folks, I hate to say it, but I do regrettably think it's safe to say, Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts isn't going to be doing Trump or America any favors. And so, of course, the big problem with this dynamic is that Justice Barrett isn't exactly reliably constitutionally conservative either. She's been known to rule alongside the radical progressives from time to time. So once again, although this ruling about diversity, equity, and inclusion really is an absolutely massive win, we're still not quite out of the weeds yet. And so you know what? To give you guys a little bit of an update on President Trump's ongoing legal battles against all of these hyper-progressive partisan federal judges, take a look at this.
Now what we're seeing is every day President Trump and the Trump administration are being sued by Democrat state attorneys general, by left-wing activist groups, and they're going out and forum shopping. They're seeking the most radical left-wing judges who are issuing nationwide injunctions that are an absolute abuse of power. Any injunction should cover the parties to a case and not people who are not parties to the case. And I will tell you, the volume of it is truly unprecedented. So in the first 2 months of the Trump administration, we have seen 37 nationwide injunctions issued against the Trump administration. That is more than the entirety, both terms of George W. Bush, both terms of Barack Obama, and Joe Biden's 4 years. All of those added together, the first 2 months of Trump have more nationwide injunctions. This is left-wing activists wearing robes trying to seize policy making from the elected president of the United States. It's wholly illegitimate.
So, ladies and gentlemen, as I said earlier, regrettably, we are still in the thick of it. Pretty much every single one of these federal injunctions are going to need to go all the way up to the Supreme Court. And as we talked about earlier, it's a close court. Really, it's an unpredictable court. And you know, I have to say, it really is just absolutely astounding that all of these far-left, radically progressive federal judges have been allowed to file all of these nationally sweeping federal injunctions in the first place. But hey, here's some good news. There actually is a very small chance that the U.S. Supreme Court issues a ruling saying that at a fundamental level, these nationwide injunctions are actually in conflict with the U.S. Constitution. In fact, in both 2018 and 2020, various members of the U.S. Supreme Court have issued critiques of national injunctions, with Justice Gorsuch specifically saying that national injunctions risk, quote, turning every district judge into a national policymaker. Sound familiar, folks? Yeah, that is exactly what has happened. But you know what? Here's the truth. With yesterday's DEI ruling, we are off to a very good start, and we do have to be thankful for the wins that we do get, because once again, as of yesterday afternoon, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, is now federally banned. And so, as we said earlier, there are some very big issues that are going to be heading to the Supreme Court very soon. Whether or not President Trump can single-handedly end birthright citizenship or invoke the Alien Enemies Act to deport illegal immigrants, or whether or not he can federally ban gender-affirming care, the next couple of months really do have the potential to change the entire future of this country. If President Trump gets the Supreme Court's approval to unquestioningly move ahead with his America First agenda, this country really will be reborn almost overnight. But you know what? As things stand right now, DEI is gone, and all of the far left's anti-American racist ideologies are no longer getting taught in American public schools. And you know what? Let's be positive here. That is probably a good sign of things to come from the Supreme Court, because hey, they did just vote to shut down DEI. And you know what? I don't know about you guys, but in my opinion, that is one step along the path of making America great again. Now, before we wrap up with today's video, I do want to say real quick that I've actually gone ahead and made a community Facebook page where I'll be posting additional news and updates as it relates to all of this stuff. So hey, if you guys use Facebook, check out the pinned comment down below and give that page a follow. But ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be a wrap for today's video, so please go down below and drop a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this. Please like the video if you liked it. As I like to say, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton with my daily struggle here on YouTube. Thank you all very much for tuning in today. And of course, as always, stay safe.